Here to preview the Galway Clare All-Ireland final, Niall Corcoran and Tommy Guilfoyle. I know we're a couple of steps from that just yet, but Niall, Tommy, how are you?
Good morning,
lads.
What, Tommy, we'll just start off with you. What did you make of that performance from Clare on Saturday, and how much of it was down to how good Clare were, how much was it down to how bad Dublin were?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of both. I think, Shane, Clare were, very impressive. I suppose it was a game that we were expected to win, but didn't expect to win by the margin that we did win. Was very disappointed with Dublin, in fairness. I would have thought that they would have been in transition, but they seemed to be way off the pace and way off the physicality and intensity needed at this stage of the championship. But from a Clare point of view, the job done. Probably the negative remains to be seen about the injury count. But all told, we did what we had to do relatively comfortably.
Niall, obviously you were involved with Wexford again this year. You know those the Leinster teams very well, and obviously still operate in Dublin with Kilmacud Crokes. What did you make of the Dublin performance and how the season ended up? It was very disappointing.
Yeah, it was disappointing, Shane. I thought I didn't expect Dublin to win the game, but I definitely thought the margin would have been closer. I thought that there was too much space given to the Clare forwards, and really hurt Dublin at the end. Players like David Fitzgerald caused untold damage in the middle of the field for Dublin, and they just couldn't get a handle on them. If you're looking at Dublin as a whole, I thought they performed very well against Galway, and I thought there would been a bigger performance. But I suppose looking at Niall Donoghue, he's a few months in the job, and there has been progress from that point of view. But I certainly thought the gap would have been a bit closer than it actually was.
Michael?
Niall, just on Dublin, one of the biggest surprises for me, and you've obviously played against them already in the Leinster Championship, the middle of their defence was just wide open on so many occasions. The three Tony Kelly goals were were almost like a game of football, where it was a long kick out, everyone was pressed up, the ball broke, and the whole thing was open. It was bizarre to see it at senior inter-county level.
Yeah, it was very strange, Michael. Looking back at it again, I suppose first of all to say that's where people like Chris Crummy and Cian O'Callaghan are a massive loss for Dublin. You can't replace players like those. I thought the matchups were very strange. I know we Paddy Doyle on Tony Kelly, and Paddy is having a fine season, but I think when you're looking to shut down someone like Tony Kelly, you need somebody who's essentially not interested in hurling. And I thought the matchups, maybe, I suppose hindsight's a great thing, but would Paddy Smith or someone being a better fit for someone like Tony Kelly? Look, Conor Burke is a fantastic hurler. Is he a natural centre back? Possibly not. When you have the Chris Crummy not on the setup, and Cian O'Callaghan, they are defenders, and I think looking back at that, and no doubt Niall will, and the lads will review that. They will look at that defence for sure, and look at why. First of all, there was so much space, and once you give those Clare forward space, it's impossible to shut them down.
There was times as well that Conor Burke was playing six, obviously, and he picked up an early yellow. But there was times where he was tracking Shane O'Donnell out to the middle of the field, and it just left an ocean. I was just surprised. I know I'm not a big fan of necessarily playing an extra defender or whatever, but it's just I couldn't believe that there wasn't somebody minding the house nearly at all times.
Yeah, and I think part of that was I thought Clare used the ball quite well at times. They worked the ball up the field. They play a very good possession game, and I think Dublin kind of didn't get a handle on that. I think we struggled from Dublin perspective, struggled in the half forward line at times. Clare got the overlap, and it was really good, good ball going in there to like Mark Rogers, Tony Kelly on the breaks, and Shane O'Donnell. He particularly he was very influential coming in towards half time. He was electric, so. I think from a Dublin perspective, again, when you look at what Galway did to Tipperary and be able to shut down that space, you have to be really ruthless in terms of blocking up that space between your full back line and half back line. Maybe Dublin just weren't compact enough in that area.
Yeah, Tommy, just to talk about the positives for Clare here, Tony Kelly with 3-4, and last time a Clare man scored a championship hat-trick, we all know what you went on to do that year. Mark Rogers scored 1-6 from play. He was brilliant. Shane O'Donnell 1-2 from play. David Fitzgerald 4 points. An awful lot of lads gave excellent performances. There's the downside. John Conlon, he seemed to suffer a concussion. hopefully he'll be all right for the semi-final. Conor Cleary's still not there. But will you start off with the positives, Tommy?
Yeah, I suppose the goals. I think because I think sometimes I think when Clare are on top of teams that we don't convert that to scores, and I suppose have that ruthless streak that maybe the real champions have, like Kilkenny, where you get a goal and then you try and bury them. I think that's the first time Clare have got 5 goals in a championship match in a long time. But I suppose from creating the scores, we as a team seem to get a lot of our scores from the midfield, and it either goes over the bar or it goes wide. I think on Saturday, we hit the inside line, we hit Rogers and Peter Duggan on the inside line with good ball, and as a result we got a score. We got the scores from it. Just the form. I think Mark Rogers has threatened, he has done it sporadically, for maybe 10-15 minutes. But I think on Saturday was his most complete performance in a Clare senior jersey. We all know what he can do and his ability. But I think, we need to, make him our marquee forward, where we supply the ball to him that suits him. He can win his own ball. And again, I suppose, look at scoring 5-26 in a quarter-final augurs well for the future. You would take into account the opposition, and I don't think we're getting carried away in Clare by the scoreline. I think I'd agree with Niall. The space afforded to Clare, I don't think they could believe their luck. And when they sensed that there was that opportunity there, they drove through the middle numerous times, and you won't get that space, particularly the next day against Kilkenny. But what I was really happy with is that they showed a real intent to get goals. They showed glimpses of it against Limerick. When we got the first goal against Limerick, probably, we win for a second and third one when we could have tapped it over. So from a Clare point of view, 5-26 is a good score, with good performances from players. But look, I think it'll be a big test in a bigger test in 2 weeks' time. More physical, more intense, and certainly I don't believe we'll be scoring 5-26 against Kilkenny.
Yeah, Niall, it's 3 and 6 are going to be a big problem for Clare, but there's no doubt that the Banner were the better team, and obviously won very, very comfortably. But I have to say, there was throughout the game, and Tommy will probably confirm this, I was very frustrated with what I felt was one-sided refereeing of the game. I thought Dublin could get nothing. David Fitzgerald took at least 8 or 9 steps. He's a class player, but he does regularly take 8 or 9 steps, and he's led away with it. He set up the Rogers goal after definitely doing steps. Before that, Adam Hogan clearly pulled down Paul Crummy inside the 21. Nobody back. Should have been a black card. Should have been a penalty. A lot of decisions I felt went against Dublin. Not enough to change the result, but it made it very, very hard on Dublin.
Yeah, it was those decisions once they go against you and you're already under pressure, Shane. I think Dublin needed those breaks to even try and stay in the game. But you're right, it wasn't the reason. It wasn't the main reason they lost the game. You can go back to the refereeing and the black card. Probably a couple of moments with Wexford this season where we might have felt there was a black card needed. But ultimately it's down to the referee and seeing that, and that's maybe for another discussion around how that is interpreted and how it's implemented. But yeah, you still have to look at Dublin and say, look, how for me looking in on at that and looking at the working into Dublin hurling, again, just disappointed, I suppose, with the gap that's there, particularly after those performances against Galway and Kilkenny in the Leinster Championship. It's very kind of disappointing to see. I suppose how easily Clare were able to penetrate that Dublin defence, and Dublin also struggled in their half forward line at times. Donald Burke is obviously a massive loss for them, and I think Clare got on top there pretty early, and it was very hard to see Dublin come back. Absolutely, the refereeing decisions didn't help things, but as you said, it wasn't the reason they lost the game.
Just on Clare as well. Clare had 2-4 scored after 31 minutes. They proceeded to score 3-22 for the remaining 40 minutes. That is some tally to be conceding. And I get what you're saying, Shane. There were a couple of referee calls. I don't think they had any big bearing in the game. Alex Considine probably took 8 or 9 steps for his goal, having been pulled just before that as well. But Clare could have been out of sight. Clare could have been totally out of sight at half time. Could have had something like 5-12, 5-13 at half time easily, had they not been hitting so many careless wides. And Tommy, I suppose just in the second half, the ball that was going into the Clare forward line was totally different in the second half, wasn't it? It was far more direct. I think there was a lot less messing, I would say, kind of going on. They were playing lovely ball into Rogers. They were playing decent ball into Kelly. They were playing good ball into even O'Donnell, or he was, roaming around the half forward line when he was on the pitch. But it was kind of a different Clare in the second half.
Yeah, I think you're right, Michael. I think I think Clare sometimes around our half back line and midfield have a tendency to go for the long range score. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I think we need to be more creative and I suppose when you've an inside line at times with Shane O'Donnell and Mark Rogers inside, it's dropping that ball 5-10 meters in front of him at an angle. But I suppose when you're on top out the field, you have that time and space to do that. I think that's an area Clare can and will improve on, because most of the top forwards or the top teams at this stage have two marquee forwards on the inside line. It all comes down to the quality of ball going through. Now we have good strikers, John Conlon, David McInerney, Diarmuid Ryan, obviously Tony Kelly, and all those. But there's times when it's the right decision is to keep the ball alive. Hit the D, bring it nearer to the scoring zone, and you will get a return. And also, I suppose you'll ask questions of a defence because, if you have an inside line that's been supplied with perfect ball, there isn't really much the defence can do. And, we saw that in the Munster final, I suppose. There was a lot made of, Aaron Gillan's performance, but, you would question, how our outfield players allowed Limerick the time and space to look up to hit Gillan exactly where he wanted. And that's an area that we can improve on. We can put more pressure on the opposition, and I think we will do that against Kilkenny. Obviously, they have a tendency while they're working it through the lines, they can go along as well to an inside line. And, we know the players they can stack in that full forward line. But from a Clare point of view, I think it's, probably it's something we're working on is the delivery of the ball. And again, it's going to get harder as you climb the ladder. And Kilkenny the next day, I'm sure we'll put maximum pressure on the Clare defender. So it may be back to the old style, get it forward as quick as you can and hope for a break. Duggan has that ability to win the ball. Shanahan when he came on, but inside primarily Shane O'Donnell, Mark Rogers or Ian Galvin, would like the ball hit in, to their advantage. So that's an area we can work on.
Just a quick update. The All-Ireland Senior Football Championship quarterfinal draws we made this morning. Definitely got one of the draws that everyone wanted anyway. Derry Cork, Armagh Monaghan, Kerry Tyrone, but Dublin Mayo, another chapter into that saga. That'll be absolutely fascinating. Shane, just a quick reaction to that even.
Well, I think Dublin Mayo, we all kind of wanted that. That's going to be an absolute cracker. And the way Mayo beat Galway, Niall's Galway yesterday, I'm sure you're caught up by that being a good football man. Armagh Monaghan, I don't really want to see another all-Ulster clash, but look, it'll still be good. Kerry Tyrone, actually, that's very interesting because Tyrone are in great form now, and will Kerry want the physical battle that they're definitely going to get there? But look, we'll come back to that later on because we've John Mahan coming in. Tommy, ultimately, is this fullback and centre-back issue going to cost Clare if Conlon can't start, isn't right? And if, because I don't think Conor Cleary has been replaced, and it's at times Paul Crummy was in there, ball wasn't coming in. Danny Sutcliffe, I thought, did great damage in that first half without scoring that much, but he was winning ball after ball, and obviously Considine caused trouble too.
Oh, Shane, it's going to be crucial that Cleary, is fit and ready to play, and Conlon can say, because we saw what happened last year when Conlon was out. We just didn't have the personnel, and we made a couple of changes that didn't work out. But factor into that, David McInerney missed yesterday's game or Saturday's game as well. So I think from Clare defensively, we need to have all our players fit and available. Again, you look at Conor Cleary, a lot of people, you would be questioning him, but we didn't really miss him until he was gone. We don't have anyone similar. He's your spoiler defender. He doesn't do the spectacular. He just does the dirty work around there. Lets the ball into the keeper, breaks it through. Conlon has settled into that centre back role. And I think when he went off, and David McInerney missing, I suppose, we can forget about that. We ended up with a relatively inexperienced backline. I would say made up by guys that are used to playing maybe a cornerback or wing back. Rory Hayes went to centre back, not a natural centre back. Adam Hogan took up on the inside line. So I think for Clare, particularly coming up against a Kilkenny forward line that will probably include John Donnelly, Walter Walsh, Mossy Keown, TJ Reid, Mullen, Cody, we will need to have our top defenders available, our physically strong defenders, because otherwise Kilkenny will, they will sense maybe that there's goals there in that full back line, and they will stack that inside line and go for it. So from a Clare point of view, Cleary and Conlon and McInerney, need to be 100% fit. And then, then we will be in a great chance. But we're just going to have to wait and see. I suppose something in Clare, and, I'd be involved in a certain amount of media work with Clare FM. We hear nothing that's coming out of training. We don't know the team or panel until half an hour before throw in. So there's a lot of speculation. We also have, Aidan McCarthy is carrying an injury that didn't play. He wasn't in the 26. So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a big 2 weeks ahead. But I think from a Clare point of view, we need everyone fit, available and ready to take on Kilkenny in 2 weeks' time.
Will it be a wild one to throw Aidan McCarthy centre back when he comes back? Because the forwards, there's plenty of scores in the forwards. He has played there. I remember him playing there for UL. He's played wing back for Clare as well previously. Would that be a wild one?
Look, it needs must, I suppose, when it comes to it. I suppose last year against Kilkenny, David McInerney stepped in and he would be comfortable enough at centre back. But I suppose you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're in Clare, probably down the years, we always had loads of backs, defenders. We were always short. We always had a couple of forwards. Now I think it's the reverse for whatever reason. We have lots of forwards or like players in defence. When we're missing the likes of Cleary and Conlon, we don't have ready-made replacements. Our under-20 team, had a lot of, they're young and inexperienced, so maybe not ready to step up yet. Adam Hogan has made that step up, and maybe, down the line, someone like John Keneally, who has played very well for the 20s, and indeed he played for his club yesterday in the league semi-final at centre-back. He may be, but in the short term, what they'll do, who they'll put in, I expect Conlon to be fit and available. Probably Cleary, the doubt will be there, his game time and training and all that, and the fact that it's a dislocated shoulder, will have a big bearing on it. But worrying times from a defensive point of view. So fingers crossed in Clare that the medics can get their job done and we have the best 15 on the field in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Niall, do you expect many of the Dublin lads that are away this year to be back next year? Do you expect Dublin's fortunes to improve in 2024?
You'd hope so, Shane. Look, there has been progress this year in terms of getting that third spot in Leinster. I think the performance against Kilkenny and against Galway. Sorry, guys, I don't know if you can hear me. My screen went blank there.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
All good, yeah.
Apologies about that. The performance against Kilkenny and Galway were quite encouraging. And again, it's just, I suppose, getting that consistency. Like, you would love to see Chris Crummey back in the fold, and maybe Cian O'Callaghan back in the fold for next year. I think developing more scoring forwards. I think Danny was did look a threat inside the full forward line, and maybe is that his home for the next couple of years. Paul Crummey beside him. I know Alex Constantine on what he can do also. Donald Burke. So maybe you build on those guys. But you would, Dublin do need a full hand to pick from. And you would hope that would be the case in 2024. Like there were positive Saturday when you look at say the crossfield ball that Dublin played into the inside full forward line. Like there was a threat there. So that's something that you can build on. thought Mark Rogan, for his first year inside, I know he's a Crokes man, probably a bit biased, but for his first year on the panel, I thought brought energy around that middle third. I'd actually play him wing back. I think he's a brilliant wing back, and even at 6, but he did quite well midfield this year. You mentioned Paddy Doyle. He's another young player. He's a fantastic hurler. I don't know if he's a man marker, but he's a fantastic hurler, and he's going to get better. So you have to give these guys time, and maybe look at how we rejig the forwards a bit, and look at a couple of more scoring threats, I think.